Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. It's the final days of our Black Friday sale. Recharge this season with a bundle of cozy, soothing comfort. Now only $17.99 for our C2 mattress and base, plus free premium delivery. Prices higher in Alaska and Hawaii. Check it out at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com today.
We all know those GLP-1 injections work wonders, but that price tag almost gave me a heart attack when my insurance denied coverage. I was staring at a choice between paying my mortgage or paying for weight loss. Talk about a rock and a hard place. Then I found Elevate Health compounded semaglutide at just $58 with payment plans that don't require a second mortgage. Same medication, same results, but a price that real folks can actually afford. Visit joinelevate.com today. That's JOINELEVATE.com. Your wallet will be as happy as your waistline. This medication is not FDA approved.
It's Sunday, December 22nd, and this is Doing the Thing. I'm Eric Rezsnyak, and I'm here with Wizard Radio Station's Ashleigh Stiles. Hello, Ashleigh.
Hello, Eric.
Howdy. And James Gilmore. Hi, James.
Hi, how are you?
Hashtag thriving, and we are here to talk about everything happening in our worlds this week. Ashleigh, how are you generally? What's going on?
Generally being alright. It's coming to Christmas. What a wonderful time of year. If I'm drooling at all this evening, it's not merely because I've been playing a lot of the new Indiana Jones game, which is amazing.
Yes.
I have a wisdom tooth that's acting up very badly, so I'm fighting through it. But otherwise, been doing fine.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear about the wisdom teeth. That's a difficult pain. Much like that. Amen. And I was going to say, it's almost as bad as that last Indiana Jones movie. James, what's new with you? What's going on?
I'm going to say, in similar warning to Ashleigh, I've got a very bad cough. I've very much got the winter sickness this year. But you've got me on my best day of the past 2 weeks. So I'm excited to see where the night might take us.
Yeah, well, we'll take the best day of your last 2 weeks, but I'm so sorry to hear that you're dealing with that. On my end, I was telling James, I'm over here in New York, in the States, and it is -4 degrees Celsius here in New York City. So we are enjoying, and by enjoying, I mean not enjoying at all, the very chilly weather that has moved in. But we do have snow, which actually we have not had snow here in New York for Christmas in years. So that's kind of charming. That being said, we are going to talk a little bit. We're going to look back on the last 12 months in pop culture here, and we wanted to start off, actually, it is this year 2024 pop culture, but it's also this week pop culture, the big scandal around It Ends With Us, the movie starring Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, and I wanted to check in with my colleagues here. Are you up to date with this new It Ends With Lawsuits, which seems to be very much the trend of December 2024? James, are you up to speed with what's going on there?
I was saying before that we went on air today how hard it feels like it is to track news stories at this time of the year. But this is one that I'm all across. This penetrated the inner circle this weekend. And I think it's so interesting. You have, obviously, Blake Lively, who has sued Justin Baldoni and his company for alleged harassment and a smear campaign in the press, in both the filming of the film It Ends With Us and the press campaign, which is a complete 360 from in the press campaign. We were all led to believe that Blake Lively was in the wrong, and it has just been so fascinating the past 24 hours finding out actually how successful this alleged smear campaign has been. I mean, there are text messages that have come out between Justin Baldoni and his team, and you go, God, I feel like I've been tricked. Genuinely, I feel like the wall has been pulled over all of our eyes. It's been so interesting.
Yeah, I agree with that. Ashley, are you familiar with this story? Do you know what we're talking about?
Vaguely. This is one that did sort of pass me by. It didn't penetrate my news bubble haze. But from the sort of surface reading of it, it would be quite interesting to see if there has actually been a reversal, as it were. And it turns out that things perhaps not as much as they seem, because, of course, especially when it comes to these big celebrity harassment scandals that there have been with Amber Heard, Johnny Depp being a sort of previous one where it became a big media circus, and a lot of people very much felt that they had been unable to pass the truth from the fiction. So if it turns out that this actually, Blake Lively presents this evidence, and it's like, actually, they were smearing me, they were misdirecting.
Well, it's so interesting that you bring up the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, because one of the main elements of this Blake Lively situation is that the firm that Baldoni allegedly, and we're going to use the term allegedly repeatedly in this because this is all coming out right now in legal documents, hired for this alleged smear campaign against Blake Lively is the same firm that was hired to smear Amber Heard in the Johnny Depp trial. And there are text messages. Now, text messages can be fabricated. We don't know. Again, this is all being played out right now. We need to be very careful. I think that's one of the things we have to take away from all of this is the media literacy of taking a moment when you're presented with something, no matter where it's coming from, because this was going through legacy media channels. This wasn't all through social media, right? There were people stories about this. There were stories in the Times about this. But basically there are screenshots in which Baldoni is telling this PR firm, like, go after her the way that you all, or we wanted the same thing that happened to Hailey Bieber over the summer on Twitter, where there was a massive anti-Hailey Bieber campaign accusing her of being hostile towards other women. It's really ugly. And even if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't care about this movie, I don't care about Blake Lively, I don't care about Justin Baldoni, the larger issue here is this media literacy, right? It's this talking about propaganda and how easy it is for us to all just read something, assume we now have the information, when it can be someone completely spinning something to something else. Do you agree with that, James?
Yeah, I mean, there's that quote that says, like, we can bury anyone or something like that, which has come out from these screenshots. And it is scary to think that you have media literacy where you talk about, your older parents falling for things and falling for fake news. And you often think, it could never be me. I know what looks like a fake news website or things like that. But it is scary to think that even legitimate news outlets are posting just a specific take on something, or we're not suggesting here that anybody's lied about anything, but just that a version of events and only one side of it has come out, and that certain people have been encouraged to present information in a certain way, and that then shapes our perception. Because this summer, you cannot doubt it, there was the whole narrative around this It Ends With Us press campaign was the rift. And I saw articles around, well, this film's been so successful, but will there be a sequel because they're not getting along and all of this stuff. So it is crazy to think that a part of that has been masterminded. One of the things that just to say in all of this paperwork has surprised me the most was that the way I first came across this story in the summer were people complaining about Blake Lively taking quite a light-hearted approach in the press junket, and Justin Baldoni really highlighting the fact that this is a film about domestic violence, and he was being seen as the kind of hero for doing that. And again, allegedly, but in this lawsuit, it states that was the direction given by the film studio. The film was released by Sony, and it's been alleged that she was the one following the official direction, and he was the one allegedly not following the direction and not delivering the campaign that the studio wanted. To me, that was when I went, whoa, that was so fundamental in this story over the summer. We all thought she's bad because she's trying to brush over this, and he's great for, putting the spotlight on an important issue. But actually, again, we could have gotten it all wrong. It is kind of scary, but it is so interesting. And I think this may be the beginnings of one of 2025's biggest news stories in pop culture.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think, again, it is bigger than this movie. It is really a kind of eye-opening moment for everyone. Ashleigh, are you on Reddit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What other social media platforms are you on?
Well, to my great shame, principally Twitter. I haven't yet got my Blue Sky up and running, but I fully intend to, because as soon as that takes off, I'm going to be out of there.
And I will say, as someone who's moved over to Blue Sky, we love it. It's lovely. If you've not done it, I highly encourage you to. But regardless, I, as someone who's on Reddit, as Ashleigh is, I saw in real time this smear campaign against Blake Lively happening. And in the documents that are being provided in this lawsuit, again, these alleged documents, they specifically, the PR form specifically says we're going to focus on Reddit. We're going to focus on Instagram. We're going to focus on TikTok. And I've previously worked in media. Ashleigh, you've worked in media. James, if you work, you work in media right now. You're on a radio station. I can tell you, the media, absolutely, the individual people in the media do approach stories with a specific slant. Generally, I think they're trying to do the best job that they can to tell the story the way that they see it. But I think people need to remember that no matter where it's coming from, there are always going to be actors in the media who do have a slant. And in this particular case, there are, again, text messages where this PR firm is saying, I've got people in the media ready to go to tell our version of the story. You tell me when, and we're going to stick them. And so it is a fascinating look at the way that we can have our perceptions change dramatically by, no matter if it's legacy media or social media, we have to be very thoughtful about how we are digesting things. Ashleigh, you want to say something?
Yeah, the legacy media part that you mentioned to me is the most galling, because of course we are, not inured to it, but used perhaps to social media, content aggregators like Reddit even being hyperbolic and getting very swept up in things. Much as that's a bad thing, people can sort of expect it. Trust in legacy media has been declining over the past few years anyway, but it doesn't help when you have things like this. There's been expressions been floating around, especially in terms of the reporting of things like, the economy pre and post the election. The job of a journalist is not to hear one side say it's raining and one side say it's dry and then go, well, here's the two perspectives. It's to look out the window and see what the weather is and to say, good that we're finding sources now and trying to confirm things. If this PR firm was orchestrating this, now we have the sources now we're reporting. One wonders, though, whether it was, and there's definitely the risk of editorial bias, but also laziness, frankly. Laziness can be as dangerous as bias because it then facilitates it. You get this PR guy come up and say, oh, no, here's the true story. Here's exactly how it went down. Just publish this and that'll be fine. And people just rubber stamping it and that going out as the story.
Well, I think just to jump off the back of that, I think what you see so much is that these outlets, they actually want to report almost on like every side of this because they want as many articles and headlines as possible. So they don't want to do the, actually, this is a non-story, this is something that's being spun. They want to go, oh my God, this is salacious. And you have the journalists following the journey as if they were a consumer or a reader, because it makes for more headlines, more content. And you're right, that's not the role of journalism. That's not what it should be. I love that analogy, Ashleigh, around looking out the window. But I just feel like so much of journalism nowadays, outside of a few outlets, that's not what they're doing anymore. I did want to touch on new media as well. I saw on TikTok somebody who has actually been quoted in the lawsuit. A TikTok video that they made out of their own free will has been quoted, and they've been put as a reference as an example of the kind of successful smear campaign taking hold amongst the public. And that girl was like, I cannot believe this video that I just like randomly made, my reaction on something that I'd seen online, is now a part of a lawsuit. And it's kind of, I don't know, I think to what everybody said, it just goes to show you sometimes you don't realise how deep in it you are until you're all the way there.
Yeah, I think social media and new media has made everyone a broadcaster, and I don't think that everyone is trained to understand the responsibilities that you have as a broadcaster. So speaking let's pivot a little bit about new media. Another story that's come out this weekend but refers to pop culture of 2024 is the Hawk Tua scandal. I cannot believe that that's a phrase that came out of my mouth, the Hawk Tua scandal. In case you are unaware, Hawk Tua is a demure blossom who in the beginning of this year became internet famous after doing a TikTok interview in which she discussed how she would approach specific jobs, they are called jobs for a reason, for a gentleman paramour. And from that, she has become an actual icon for, I guess, Gen Z. She literally got her own podcast, which I believe is the second most popular podcast on Spotify. Am I correct about that, James?
Yeah, I think so. Second
I believe
or third.
that is correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think she's part of one of the Paul Media empire, right? So she recently launched her own cryptocurrency. I think it's called just Hawk, right?
Yeah, the Hawk token, I think.
The Hawk token, which as soon as it launched, lost a huge amount of its value, 90+% of its value, and she has been besieged by people accusing her of defrauding investors and illegalities, which are currently being investigated. She disappeared for weeks and has recently resurfaced, I believe, as of this morning. Ashleigh, are you familiar with the Hawk Tua alleged con job?
As familiar as any, and as somebody whose personal bugbears is cryptocurrency. I will come out of this segment as a very obvious detractor here. This is a classic rug pull. The question, I think, is whether or not Haley Welch, the Hawk Tua girl, was merely a patsy for this, someone who just genuinely had no idea what crypto was, had paper shoved in front of her, and just signed this, yeah, it'll be fun, you'll make millions. And presumably she has made a huge sum of money off of this, or someone has. Whether it's her, whether it's an advisor in the inner circle who did this, but this is yet another classic rug pull. But I saw a very telling comment, I think, to Zipter, where somebody said, in response to her tweet that she did today or the day before, like apologizing for it, Hawk Tua was supposed to be about community. And someone said in response, wasn't it about performing certain acts? And the guy said, well, if you want to be reductive, I guess it was. And it's like...
Reductive Hawk Tua!
That to me is the encapsulation of how frankly gullible you got to be to fall for this kind of thing. But it does... There is a little bit of seriousness there in that people will have lost their shirts over this. How you explain that to why there's not going to be Christmas presents this year because you bet the farm on Hawk Coin and got conned. You got Ponzi'd. That's got to be low.
I do think.
Yeah, kids.
I was going to say, it goes to show though just how like there are fan bases out there for people. Like people, I remember seeing a video because there was some sort of like chat room or like conversation between people who had been, this is after the coin had lost its value. Her fans were gathering and talking about how they feel betrayed and they really wanted to support the growth of this coin, which is just crazy. And again, you just have to be so deep in it. And that was the one that she joined the call, and then they were all talking about this, and she was like, all right, guys, I'm going to bed. Bye. And left. And people felt, again, like betrayed and disappointed. And you go, this girl became famous not for being educated about financial services. Like, she became famous because of a viral clip that lasted 30 seconds. And I think the crime she's definitely guilty of here is just not taking her platform responsibly. Whether what actually happened in this instance was planned, or whether, as you said, Ashleigh, like she's just somebody's taken advantage of her, or she's actually a beneficiary of this, that time will tell. But it goes to show that there was actually a great experiment that happened on the BBC about 5 years ago on a documentary where they wanted to test influencers promoting products, and they set up meetings with influencers to present a new product to them and see how much money it would take for them to promote the product. And they basically, it was a fake product, and they called it Zyklone B or something, which is like the gas they use in the concentration camps.
Yep.
they had hidden cameras, and all of these influencers were like, yeah, absolutely, this is how much I'd charge for a post. Very few people said no. Everyone was like, yeah, sure. And it was just kind of like confirming the thing we all knew but hadn't seen before. And it's just quite disappointing that in 2024 that is still so pertinent.
You know what that reminds me of? If I can just say quickly, when FTX, the crypto exchange, got embroiled in their massive fraud scam, and all of those influencers and celebrities like Larry David and the football player they went down with the ship. One person they approached who allegedly did not take them up was Taylor Swift.
Yep.
She was asked, do you want to pitch for this? And she bothered to research what FTX was and said, hey, isn't this like an illegal scam? Isn't this fraud, basically? Selling, what were they, unregulated shares or whatever. And funnily enough, yeah, so some people who do have, I guess, either the people with them, the advisors, to tell them to know better, or that know better, can be protected from it. But someone like Hayley Welch, if you'd have told her, however many months ago, in N number of months, you're going to be embroiled in a crypto scam worth millions of dollars, she would probably not have believed you. So it's, you know...
Well, I
doubt she even knows what crypto is. She's 22.
Yeah.
Like, she was 21 when she became famous. What were you saying, James?
I was going to say, the funny thing about the FTX thing is that Larry David's defense was his whole campaign for FTX was an ad of him saying he doesn't believe any of this. The whole campaign was don't be Larry David, because Larry David doesn't like FTX. So, I mean, he must have been like, lucky I'm me, eh?
Yeah. Ironies. We have to wrap up and go to our first song break, but I will just say this: crypto is a scam. Like, if you are going to, do not invest in this. Crypto is made so that people who are already rich get richer, and you are going to get suckered. Also, if you're going to invest in something, it shouldn't be pitched by a 22-year-old girl who got famous 12 months ago for making a video about doing something to a gentleman's nether regions. With that being said, we are going to take our first break of the hour, and we will be right back after this song.
Hello and welcome back to Doing the Thing on Wizard Radio. I'm Ashleigh Stiles here with Eric Rezsnyak.
Hello.
And James Gilmore.
Hello.
And before the break, we were talking about trends in pop culture in 2024. We were talking about, in particular, the Hawk Tua crypto scam, which, like many crypto scams, ended up in a rug pull, but had the interesting flavor of being entirely based around a meme. But in terms of things that have brought perhaps a little bit more culture into the pop culture, Wicked has been one of the biggest film releases of 2024. Major press campaign that took over a lot of stuff. Did you guys, we'll start with James, see Wicked? Are you a Wicked person?
Oh, well, that's a different question.
Loaded question.
Yeah. I did see the film. I saw it like this Saturday. It came out on the Friday. I saw it on the Saturday. It was amazing. I didn't like, if I was in the editing room, a couple of scenes may have been different, but maybe shorter. But it was an incredible film that actually, I think, showed in a time where I think the film industry and the major studios have really struggled to grasp the attention of the public en masse. You know, we've had Barbenheimer, then it's been pretty absent, and you even had massive Pixar films that had become somewhat niche affairs. That actually, it was, I thought, really lovely to have a film like Wicked that really united everyone, and it feels like almost most categories of people have engaged in the film in some way. It's been quite uniting, and film used to be far better at that than it is now. So I like that. To me, that feels like the defining pop culture moment of 2024. And otherwise, we would just be left with the Hawk Tua girls. So I'm happy to have seen it. I'm happy for what it represented. Eric, did you see it?
Oh my God! Yes, I saw it, and so I actually saw it twice. I think I was the Thanksgiving weekend, the weekend after Thanksgiving in America. I was actually in Tennessee, so thank you very much for that, little brother, dragging me over there. But we went into the theater, and the theater was absolutely packed. I mean, it was jam packed with people, and I was like, "Oh, this has got to be because there's Gladiator." They tried to make Glicked a thing that happened. Gladiator 2 plus Wicked. It did not work, by the way. Gladiator 2 is not great. Wicked and also Moana 2 was that weekend. So I was like, oh, they've really offered something for everybody. The kids were there for Moana 2. Everybody else was there for Wicked, because I will tell you, we've been to Gladiator 2 in that same theater at that time, and it was just like there was nobody there, and that's the way it should be. It's not a great movie. But Wicked, I came in with extraordinarily high expectations, and they were all exceeded. I will agree that you could do some cuts here and there, but my gosh, what a terrific adaptation from stage to film. It was a fantasy. It was a visual feast. I thought that the leads were all wonderful. It did not escape my notice that the two romantic leads in that film are actually played by openly gay actors, and yet not for a single second did I be like, I don't know if I'm buying this. I was in, you guys. I was 100% in. I believed that Cynthia Erivo was that green girl, and I thought that Ariana Grande was a delight. I think we also need to talk about the promotional campaign for this movie, which seemed to go on for even longer than Wicked existed on Broadway. It was a decades long, it felt like, affair. James, what were your favorite moments from the press tour for Wicked?
I think my highlight, biggest moment from the press tour was the holding space.
Oh,
that video, everything from Ariana holding Cynthia's finger to... I think my favourite moment, though, is the interview they did afterwards, where both Ariana and Cynthia admitted that they had no idea what was going on. And then even the woman, the interviewer, has admitted that it was not interpreted how she meant it. And moments like that just go to show that in 2024... the witches could still happen, because that was a mini example of just mass hysteria, it's almost mini hysteria taking hold. And so I'm revisiting the Crucible, I'm revisiting the Salem witch trials with a whole new light and understanding of exactly how this is possible. Actually, I'm interested, as somebody I feel like you haven't been as engaged in Wicked as other people, were there any moments of this past, 300 months of a press campaign that kind of cut through to you?
Not many. My fellow LGBTQ siblings are going to kick down my door for not having seen Wicked, but it was one that sort of passed me by. But I did see the Glicked thing, and I did also see that was not a thing. I think with moments like you mentioned, that little thing that you said, it was an organic moment. They didn't know what everything was going to happen. It happened. You can't make fetch happen. You have to let it come naturally. Barbenheimer, it came about simply because they were two big, kind of ensemble cast films, really. Obviously Cillian Murphy's the lead in Oppenheimer, but it is an ensemble film with all the other actors. And then Barbie, same as well. You've got a lot of big name billing with very different themes at the same time. Competition? No. And then it came together very organically. People picked up on it. If they had gone in, if both marketing teams had colluded at the beginning and said, we're going to make Barbenheimer happen, dollars to donuts, everyone would have gone, nope, not happening.
Yep.
You can't make it happen.
I agree. I think people are wise enough to see that. Sorry, James, go ahead.
A very small addition. I think it's that also, those two films were so opposite. You had, Oppenheimer, which is such a dark film and is a filmmaker-led film. It was all about Christopher Nolan. And then Barbie is obviously bright pink. It's a franchise in the making. And it was much more about the brand and the pinkness than about, Greta or Margot Robbie or anything like that. Whereas with, I feel like even in the Glicked, there was far less excitement over Gladiator. It's not as big a franchise. And Wicked, whilst many of us have been incredibly lucky over the past 20 years to have seen the musical, this is the start of a franchise. It was still a risk for the film studio. It's not obvious it was going to be massive immediately. It was just had a really good chance. And I will say, actually, I am interested. I've not seen the statistics, but when I went to the cinema and saw it, a lot of the kids that were in the cinema seemed very antsy during the film. When I saw Barbie and when I've seen some of these other slightly younger leaning films, that I haven't remembered that sort of like people going up to the toilet. And I do wonder, whilst obviously in the marketing of Wicked and in casting the likes of Ariana Grande, they've tried to go for quite a young audience. I'm interested in what the reality is of that, especially Eric, with you saying that really the kids went to Moana too.
Yeah, I mean, in the Wicked 2 screening, in the Wicked screening that I went to, there were a lot of kids on the phones, I noticed. I mean, I've just accepted that this is part of the movie viewing experience at this point in time, but there was a whole row of teenagers in front of us that were on their phones and talking through the entire film. So I don't know if it is as exciting for the I don't even know what is Alpha now that's in the teenage level. I think it's Gen Alpha. I think they're very much, they don't care for movies. I think they want little bits of content, and a 2 hour and 40-minute movie is just not going to sit with them. They don't have the attention span for it.
I think that's a little unfortunate in terms of what it means for cinematography and what will get made, because it's what studios will greenlight, basically. You have some production houses, A24 is one that I tend to have a lot of time and respect for, that go for more, what I call interesting projects, more varied things, giving directors a bit more leeway with their projects. But I think if attention spans are shortening to that extent, it just means the studios are going to greenlight things that are more much of a muchness. They'll find a formula they like that they think sort of has broad appeal and then go for that.
The Skibbity Toilet movie is coming. That's a thing.
Oh, God.
So get ready.
Is it actually? Is that confirmed news?
I'm almost positive there is a Skibbity Toilet movie in the works. I'm almost
I've heard
positive.
rumblings. I have heard rumblings.
Oh,
but if we can pivot from movies where perhaps we are seeing not a decline, but an evolution, we'll say, to another pop culture medium, which is music and pop music. We've seen some meteoric rises of the past year. Chapel Roan, I think it's hard to understate how big she has been from where she was like last year to where she is now. But of course, Sabrina Carpenter as well. Charli XCX had a comeback, I guess you'd say, although her fans would say she never left. Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years. What do you guys think? We'll start with you, Eric, about the current state of play with pop culture and pop music in particular.
Love it. I am fully seated for my pop girlies. I'm actually really excited to see who else kind of joins that upper echelon. I do think Sabrina and Chapel had their kind of escape velocity moments this year. Chapel's, which much more organic. Like the world just discovered her. I was like, oh girl, we've known about her for a while now, but welcome to the party. Sabrina, I think, was a little bit more force fed. I don't know about anybody else, but I literally could not put on Spotify over the first 8 months of this year without hearing Espresso constantly being shoved down my throat. But that being said, I love Short and Sweet. It's a great album. There's an entire layer of other really great pop girls that are just simmering, right? They're ready for that explosive moment. And I'm not sure who's going to pop next. And it's really exciting as someone who loves pop music. The one thing I will also point out, though, is that where are the men? Where are the guys? Can anyone name an actually successful male pop artist right now? I can't. And I find that so interesting that we have this very strange, completely leaning one way. I'd love to hear some good ones. The other thing I would point out is, as James has kind of led us to, Charli XCX, who is, as I agreed, never really went away, had such an incredibly potent moment politically with Brat Summer that it was adopted by the Kamala Harris presidential campaign. It was amazing. James, you wanted to talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, on something you've said, I think what's interesting is that pop music has become so led out of America, which is not the way it's been for the longest time. Like, most of the world's biggest pop stars came from countries that had public service broadcasters. The UK and Canada is where most big pop artists have come in the past 2 decades. Now that we're in generations where the internet is where we're getting all our information, public service broadcasting has become less important. America's really dominated, even in someone like Charli XCX being seen. I'd be genuinely interested to know how many people would even know that Charli XCX is British, because all of her kind of marketing and push has come out of the US. And of course, she became so influential in the States, and the kind of Brat brand and campaign, that Kamala Harris made that a part of her campaign. And I find it interesting because the narrative at that time really was like, I guess Brat's over. Like, Kamala Harris is on it. You're too late. If any brand or company doing a Brat thing now is too late. And obviously, it then still continued for months and months and months. To me, I would just say that Kamala Harris jumping on Brat just goes to show that she was going after the wrong audience. Those people were, if they were going to vote, they were going to vote for her anyway. And it was she ran a very obviously TikTok-led campaign. TikTok, an app filled with predominantly people under 18 and who can't vote or are much less likely to vote. And clearly, as time has told, the people that she needed to win over were the people who would have been much harder to win. But not the Brat lovers.
Yeah, I mean, Trump went all in on YMCA, and I guess that panned out for him.
Yeah.
So it was YMCA versus Brat Summer, and sadly, I think YMCA won.
Well, it is a classic. That is quite interesting, insofar as if you think back to like 2008 and Obama and how Twitter was seen as like the linchpin of the campaign that the Democrats absolutely went all in on, and it paid off dividends. They absolutely banned the Republicans that election. Versus now, where new social media is maybe not being capitalized in the same way or the right way. I think Kamala's big problem was ultimately the collapse in her voter base. It was all of the TikTok kids who then didn't turn out to vote for her, because although she had the messaging, she had Charli XCX in the back pocket, ultimately, when she was promising to deliver or not promising to deliver, I think the voter base just said, well, you can say Brat all you want, you could use the green and the black font, but if you're not going to promise us the things that we want you to make commitments to, that doesn't mean anything. I think maybe almost we're at this phase where perhaps, not to say that people are sort of like past it, obviously social media is still huge in politics, but I think, as you identified, the second that a brand starts doing the thing, the meme, the pop culture thing, people go, I don't want it now. Yep. So maybe it's not something you can jump on as easily as was before. What do you guys think?
I think there's a lot of truth to that. I will just add that I think one thing that we're discounting is just how incredibly misogynistic America is. The kind of, there were a bunch of people who were never going to vote for her. It did not matter what her message was, what she was promising. I mean, she was certainly promising to do things for the middle class more than her opponent was. That was clear. But there was a certain amount of people who simply were never going to vote for her because she was a woman. Period. End of sentence. Unfortunately, that is the takeaway that a lot of people had from this election. But I think it has always been that way with young people, especially. As soon as something becomes approved by their parents, like look at Facebook. As soon as mom and Nana got Facebook accounts, everybody's like, oh, hey, bye, I'm done. As soon as it becomes embraced by the previous generations, it's over. And so I know I'm personally trying to weaponize all the BS language that my niece and nephew come to me with that currently, and being like, oh yeah, that's totally base. Because as soon as I start using that, it's over. They're not going to talk about it anymore.
That's like opposition strategy, isn't it? I just also wanted to say that in all of this, I mean, one of like the big stories at the start of 2025 is going to be whether the TikTok ban goes through. The Supreme Court now getting involved. TikTok is hoping that Trump will kind of save them and call it off, because he has, although originally the conversation of a TikTok ban actually came from him, he has, since the Democrats jumped on it, he's now decided that he thinks TikTok is a great thing. It'll be interesting to see if he actually becomes the savior they want him to be, or if TikTok might see the end of its life in the States, or at least the end of its life under Chinese ownership at the start of next year. Is going to be a big story.
Yeah, well, if they write a check with enough zeros to Mr. Donald Trump or one of his affiliates, I'm sure they will get their way. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, certainly. So in terms of rounding it out, I think before we go to a break, also I just want to say on the topic of pop stars and potential comebacks, I'm so glad that Kesha has been able to launch Joyride, was on repeat, and from how her story has evolved, I'm so glad she's back in it. But in terms of, Eric, you were talking about new slang. Would you guys say, in a quick one word or two, has your year, your 2024, been Brat or Demure?
Oh, James, why don't you go first? I have to think about this.
Yeah, this is actually a really hard question. I definitely think it's been more Brat than Demure, but I don't think that I could define my year as Brat, because I think, well, what does she call her fans? Are they like the angels or something? Would just come after me.
I'm definitely much more demure, much more mindful. That's definitely the way that I've been living my 2024, and I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to do in 2025 because no American does. We are clenching our butt cheeks and just preparing for what's about to happen.
And for me, I think I've been zigzagging between the two, but when I pose that question, use those words, I think I aged myself about 10 years.
Yep.
We're going to go to a break in a song now, be back afterwards. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Doing the Thing. I'm Eric Rezsnyak, and I am here still with Ashleigh Stiles from Wizard Radio. Hello, Ashleigh. And James also from Wizard Radio.
Hello.
And we are going to pivot a little bit. We kind of got into it at the end of the last segment, where we're going to talk about democracy, because 2024 was a big year of the world going to the polls. In the UK, Labour ended nearly 15 years of conservative leadership in the US. We have my good friend, Mr. Donald J. Trump, coming back to the White House in about 20 days, girding my loins. But Ashleigh, you are extraordinarily political. Talk to me about what you think the lessons were from the past year in the democracy circle.
Oh boy, it was a big year for elections. It felt like every week on my show I was doing one. And the reason for that is this has been the biggest election year basically ever. More than 100 countries around the world, more than half the world's population, 4 billion registered voters across countries going to the polls this year alone. I saw data from the FT, Financial Times, saying that this is the first time that incumbents in political parties around the world have lost as badly as this. 80% of countries saw incumbent parties lose support compared to the previous election. They didn't necessarily lose power. In some places like India, for instance, Narendra Modi's BJP party is still in power, but they massively dropped from their own expectations. That was an interesting one to cover because they went into that election assuming they were not only going to win a majority, but increase to a supermajority. Opposite happened. They went right the way down. Still a majority, but much more tenuous. And this is the biggest incumbent slip since maybe 1894.
1894. Good year.
The FT. yeah. But basically, yeah, it's been the lesson, if any lesson, has been incumbents around the world, whether you want to say that it's complacency or economic trends or societal trends, but it's been a bad year to be an incumbent, basically.
James, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think it is? If I had to guess broadly, I think so many people are disaffected and disenchanted with their lives, and they're looking at the future, and everything looks so dark. What's your take on it?
I completely agree. I think that what we saw in the UK as a good example is the winning party Labour won with less support than they'd previously lost by. And so that really paints the picture of how apathetic people have become. And I think it's almost like we're on this version of politics where it's not even just talking points. Our politicians don't say anything. In the US, you had a campaign where one of the candidates, her campaign was so short that you basically didn't know very much about what she was planning on doing. And the other candidate just says so much, and then it does not mean that any of what he's saying could possibly translate into reality, but in a way you kind of hope it won't. It becomes really hard to make a decision as a member of the public. And so and I think that somewhat coupled with the fact that nothing has changed for so long. It doesn't matter who your leadership is. Your life definitely hasn't gotten better. And in many ways, people's day-to-day lives haven't changed either way. That we're just in this kind of stagnation. But I will say that, to look back at 2008, leading up to the recession, back then, we were in a similar crux. And then you had this major world change, and you had an opportunity for Elita to come in and make promises and feel like a breath of fresh air. I think a lot of us had hoped that 2024 would be that year, whereby we're post-COVID, there are major threats. We need leadership that's going to inspire us. We've just been served with leaders or potential leaders that are entirely uninspiring. We've often voted for the boring people. We voted in the UK for Keir Starmer. Previously you guys had voted for Joe Biden, hoping for just some calm and somebody that can sit down, put their head down and get the work done. And we've been disappointed. So I think it's hard to know. And our politicians have 4 or 5 years now to really figure themselves out, because we could end up having had 2 decades of just no growth, no improvement in the West, and just a greater divide amongst the rich and the poor. And I know this isn't on our agenda for today, but I think this is where the support for Luigi Mangione, the guy who killed the United Healthcare CEO, has come from. It's somebody, people have felt almost like a comradeship with this person because, everything sucks.
Yeah, and I'll just pivot on that and piggyback on that and say, I think that could be the real political story of 2025, is that a lot of people are waking up to the realities that this is not about all of the little us and thems that certain propaganda machines would let you think it is about. It is ultimately a class war, and I think people are realizing that. And if the incoming administration really thinks that they're going to be able to cram down an agenda that continues to enrich and empower billionaires and the upper class, and that the working class is just going to take it, I think they are going to be very sorely mistaken, because I think people are cluing into what's actually going on, and Luigi was not the end of this. I think it's the beginning, and frankly, I have to say, you know what? I'm not going to say anything because I'd rather not be arrested before Christmas, but I will just say I'm listening. I'll say that. Do you agree with that, Ashleigh?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to go and put a button on it, put my little red hat on and say that I think the problem ultimately is capitalism, which is not an unsurprising opinion to come from me, but ultimately it's that. It's, if you want to look at how hard people work, productivity around the world globally is up and has been up for decades, but wages have not increased in line with productivity. And there has been a major wealth transfer from poor to rich. Some individuals, like Elon Musk, have introduced, that transfer to themselves, increasing his net worth by something like $200 billion. Of the past year or so, you are seeing this cataclysmic wealth transfer from poor to rich, and that is going to incense people. The issue is it will not necessarily awaken them to the reality of the situation. I think one runs the risk of, like, for example, with the re-election of Trump, I think it's going to be whoever most loudly offers some change, whether that change is good change or productive change, or will actually change anything at all, especially given his new policy agenda and how he seems to be so thoroughly in the pocket of billionaires and big business. But I think if you talk game of, hey, yeah, prices are bad, your wages are low, I'm going to fix it, even if you don't say how you're going to fix it, people are going to be looking for the first solution. So I think it's about, if any of these incumbents want to try and change, if Keir Starmer wants to win his next election, he is now more unpopular at the minute than Rishi Sunak was when he lost the election. I think if he wants to have any chance, he needs to actually address the systemic causes and make a deal out of it and say, this is the change that I'm going to promise and deliver, rather than simply spending his entire tenure saying, well, things kind of suck, but they're just going to suck for a while and forever, because that's not a winning message.
But I think...
I don't know.
Go ahead, James. I don't think the bravery exists in politics to do something like that. I also, to say, the reason why the NYPD and the New York mayor march somebody like Luigi Mangione through New York as if he's Bane in what is it? Batman.
Batman. Yeah.
Bane in Batman, is they are sending the message that, like, you want this man to be your hero, this is what happens. And even what's his name, the New York mayor?
Eric Adams.
Eric Adams, when he said when he was asked why he wanted to be there, and he said that he had met with CEOs and they were afraid, and he wanted to look this man in the eyes. That is everything you need to know around, so much of the institutions that exist around us are for the protection of a few.
Yep.
And instead of looking at any sort of work around why the public have sided with a killer and why that feeling is there, instead of doing any of that work, they are trying to condemn it. That is just how the system works. I wish I could believe that a trend for 2024 would be, or 2025 would be, that this will be addressed, but there's nothing to suggest that it will.
I just don't know how much longer people can remain being downtrodden before something changes. I just don't think they're going to continue to put up with it. And the other element is, I believe in America, at least, this incoming administration is going to grift so brazenly, so obviously, at levels we've never seen before, that even though they have an incredibly successful propaganda machine, there's only so much they're going to be able to do before people, even the ones that buy the snake oil, the people who invested in the Hawk coin, right? There's only so much they're going to be able to pull before they're just like, I'm over here barely paying my rent and my heat, and you're over here, making billions a year. Something is wrong. So I guess we'll see. Any final thoughts from you, Ashleigh?
I really think it'll depend on what people select as the diagnosis and the solution, ultimately. I think I fully agree with you that things are going to come to a head in the sense of the current system that we have is just not sustainable.
Yep.
For ordinary people, and people are going to see that. The question then comes as to what they choose as their alternative to it. I'll talk a little bit about this on the show that comes in Germany. In Germany's elections, the AfD, the far-right party in Germany, some of the members of whom have said, I don't think that all of the SS guys were criminals, completely beyond the pale stuff. They're polling better than the incumbent government at the minute. So people are frustrated with the system, but they're not necessarily looking in the right place for answers. That's the real danger here, is that
Amen.
they turn to these, fascists coming in, and they try to choose that as the solution, which, we saw last time that didn't work. So,
yeah, fascism not great for pretty much anybody. But,
no, very bad.
But it's Christmas time, everyone, and for that reason, I do hope that we, in all seriousness, I hope we take the time to really enjoy ourselves over the next few days with our friends and our family. But that is about all the time we have for Doing the Thing this week. I want to say thank you so much to Ashleigh and James. Where can our listeners find you, Ashleigh?
On Twitter at Stiles97, although that may become Blue Sky within the new year, so maybe then. But you'll be seeing me right up after this for an hour if you want to hear about some international news.
And you absolutely should, because there's a lot going on. James, where can people find you?
Right here on Wizard Radio Station.
Excellent. And you can find me at greatpopculturedebate.com. We're currently pushing our holiday episodes. We have about 10 of them, holiday music, films, TV shows, whatever. If you want a little kind of respite from all the doom and gloom in the world, it'll bring you to a happier place, I hope. But remember to catch new episodes of Doing the Thing live on Wizard Radio Station every Sunday from 8 p.m. UK time, and on all podcast platforms from Monday morning. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week.